around defamation, and I think it should continue.
Thank you.
At that point, Nadien.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do you know the expression sending your cat?
Sending
your cat.
No.
Well, I am from the Flemish part of Belgium, and in my language it means not showing up.
Yeah.
So we can state, dear colleagues, that Mark Zuckerberg sent his cat to us today, to Canada, to Singapore, to France, to Belgium, to the United Kingdom. He sent his cat. Earlier we stated that Facebook would like to stop being in the confrontational modus.
Yeah.
Do you think that sending his cat or not showing up today helps him getting out of the confrontational modus?
So I think engaging in the debate gets us out of the confrontational mode. I hope I'm able to assist as a cat.
No, you are sitting next to the cat.
He's...
Yes, he sent his cat.
Thank you.
But I represent more than 6 million Facebook users in Belgium. That's more than half of the population. Facebook was convicted in Belgium because it was following the activities of Facebook users on other websites without their consent. So basically it is monitoring our activities on the web without our knowing. This is a clear invasion on our privacy and also on GDPR. Are you still doing it?
So again, I'm very familiar with that case, which is a long-running one, and this concerns this question of whether, when there is what's called a social plugin, whether a piece of Facebook is on a third-party website, the extent to which that data can be returned to Facebook. We believe that is a legal activity. It is governed actually now by the GDPR, and I think that's accepted actually including by the Belgian Data Protection Authority. I'm sure it will be returned to. And it has much wider implications. Again, it's not just a Facebook thing. Many websites now around the world fund their free content through advertising. The advertising providers, not just Facebook, but all of them, use these cookies in order to create their business model. It may be that the European Union, through GDPR and the e-privacy directive, decides to limit that. And if they do, we will follow the law. But it will have profound implications. I don't want to hide that. Belgian publishers, like everyone else, depend on this advertising ecosystem. That will have a profound implication, and that's why we think it's worth testing in a lot of detail.
Mm-hmm. I also represent millions of non-Facebook users. And I think it was my colleague of France earlier today who asked you some questions about what you do with non-users' data. And you stated, and let me see if I heard it clear, that the non-user data is still sitting on Facebook servers.
For a period of time, again, just to be clear,
yes.
The two categories, if I upload my contacts to Facebook that I have on my device, they will sit associated with my account for me to make friends with my contacts. There are also log files. The log files are technical files that any provider gets that say this IP address and this browser reached one of the properties that had Facebook content on it. And those log files are deleted periodically. So there is a routine where those log files are removed. But people would argue that is us holding non-user data because
yes.
It has an IP address.
Yes, yeah. I would argue that too.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not GDPR consent, and that I must ask you if you can ensure that Facebook is not doing this in Belgium or in Europe, or are you doing it all over the world? So is it specific domestic, or are you just doing it all over the world? Because we have that GDPR legislation.
That's right. So our systems are, we believe, compliant with GDPR generally. As I explained, I think there are some interesting questions that are yet to be tested because the GDPR is new. We'll understand, fully what it means, what consent means, what all of these questions mean over the next 2 or 3 years. I'm confident that a number of the test cases will be around Facebook, but it's also important to note that the technologies we use are pretty industry standard. And so, again, if GDPR and the e-privacy directive, the other important piece of European legislation, find that certain practices are illegal, they'll be illegal for us and everyone else. But at this stage, we believe everything we're doing is compliant.
Well, I have another question. Does Facebook have two faces? Because on the one hand, Facebook, there's Facebook that prints large advertisements in the newspapers to tell us how they have changed. But on the other hand, a Facebook that hires shade PR firms to smear competitors and critics, as we have learned from the reporting in the New York Times.
And again, I discussed earlier, I think the reporting was, deliberately selective in terms of picking information that would be damaging to us. That's fine. People are perfectly entitled to do that. But the specific piece about that firm that was hired, our CEO has gone on record and said that's not the way that he expects us to work, and a senior executive has admitted, again in public, that he was responsible, and we intend to make sure that doesn't happen in the same way again.
Then I have more general questions. Facebook is telling us that it is taking new measures to provide users with tools and to combat fake news on its platforms. However, it's unclear how we will know if these efforts will be effective. How will Facebook provide transparency on the use of these measures and the technology and algorithms that are behind these tools?
So this is one of the important areas we're working on that I think has come out of the helpful attention on the fake news subject from this committee, from other parliaments, that there is a big push around academic study in this area. I think that's helpful. There are some studies that are already being done independently. I quoted a couple earlier. I think it was University of Michigan and Les Décodeurs in France. There are also academics who want to be able to work with us, and we have a program to work with them. There are questions there. Again, back to the other theme of this debate, which is privacy and access, third-party access to data. We need to make